සුපිරි අධිවේගයක් පරදා ඔබ මවිත කරවන වේගයක් විඳ ගන්න. පියවර 3කින් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම් ෆයිබර් ඔප්ටික් ජාලයට එක්වන්න. slp.lk වෙත පිවිසෙන්න.
Good evening. Tonight, flying cars. The excise duty levied on vehicle engines capacity less than 1000 cc increased by the Finance Ministry from today.
But earlier government promised to not increase them before the budget. But this is an urgent thing because of the saving the government revenue for foreign exchange.
In the public's hands, 180 development projects completed under Pipidemu Polonnaruwa program vested in the public by President Maithripala Sirisena today. It's not true. Army commander refutes allegations that the Jaffna Fort is not accessible to the military.
I would like to remind everybody that Army had been here for many generations now.
Who did what? Chairman of Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Pires, refutes claim that the previous government failed to provide support to the Murugahakanda project.
And we secured substantial funding for the Murugahakanda project.
And in international headlines, a miracle in Mexico. A plane carrying 103 people crashed, then burnt in Mexico, and everyone on board survives.
Other Derana, first at 9. Sponsored by
Nestamol Plus, now with the goodness of oats.
From Nestle.
Live across the nation, this is Sri Lanka's news channel, Other Derana 24/7. Hello everyone, I'm Mahesh Johnny and welcome to First at 9. Despite former president of Zimbabwe calling on his people to vote against his own party, they emerged victorious. All that details coming up on our international segment later on. But first, we got some disheartening news to share in case you're hoping to own a new vehicle. The Ministry of Finance today moved to increase taxes on selected motor vehicles, especially targeting those with an engine capacity of 1,000 cubic centimeters or less. Vehicle importers say that the hike in excise duty will see prices of some automobiles rising by around 450,000 rupees.
Minister of Finance Mangala Samarvira issued a Gazette notification amending rates of excise duty on vehicles which are less than 1000 cc in engine capacity. Accordingly, rates of excise duty on vehicles less than 1000 cc of engine capacity has been increased up to 1.5 million rupees, while the duty on hybrid vehicles less than 1000 cc is increased up to 1.25 million rupees. A media communique issued by the Ministry of Finance said that the import duty on hybrid vehicles less than 1000 cc powered by electricity is revised to 1.25 million rupees. Accordingly, the price of a Wagoner, Stingray and Suzuki Spacia will increase by 450,000 rupees against the current price. Vehicle importers expect the prices of Daihatsu Mira and Toyota Pixis and Japan Alto to increase by 345,000 rupees under the new revisions. Moreover, it is reported that the Toyota Vitz, of which the engine capacity is 990 cc, will increase by 250,000 rupees, and a Honda Civic with 1000 cc engine capacity will increase by 250,000 rupees. This excise duty revision introduced today drew various views from vehicle importers.
According to the circular issued by the Finance Ministry today, the customs duty on hybrid cars which are below 1000 cc, for an example, Suzuki Wagoner, where the duty was 835,000 rupees, had been increased to 1,250,000 rupees. That's by about 415,000 rupees. Whereas the cost of a Wagoner, and at the same time the duties on cars which are below 1000 cc had been increased from 1,150,000 to 1,500,000 rupees. Whereas cost of a Suzuki Alto car, which was somewhere around 2.5 million, would go up to 2.85 million.
But earlier government promised to not increase them before the next budget. But I think this is an urgent thing because of the saving the government revenue for foreign exchange. Actually, there's some mistake in the last budget. Earlier, the implementation of the new tax system, unitary duty. Earlier, tax was the Wagoner example, 1.3 million. The new system come to 8 lakhs to 35,000. Then after that, they are popular that car, Wagoner and small cars. Then the Japanese price also increased. That's why I think government thinks before that budget, they increase some tax.
The process to vest 180 development projects completed under the District Development Programme Awakening of Polonnaruwa in the public commenced today. The process will be worked off over the next 3 days under the patronage of both President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe.
180 development projects completed under the District Development Programme Awakening of Polonnaruwa, which commenced in 2015, was vested in the public today. Under the development programme, agriculture, health and educational infrastructure will be developed, and the sum allocated for the project is 60 billion rupees. A number of projects in Hinguragoda, Madirigiriya and Alahara divisional secretariats are scheduled to be handed over to people, and 60 such projects were vested in the public today. Marking the commencement of the project, the new building of the Diulankadavala Central College was handed over to its students by President Maithripala Sirisena this morning. Polonnaruwa is a district which didn't have enough development projects which it deserved. We have allocated money to every district just like this. The responsibility of the political leadership of those districts is to spend that money recognizing necessary areas of development. In the meantime, the new bus stand in Hinguragoda with a 2-story shopping complex was vested in the public by the President. On the 8th of January in 2015, people voted for me requesting a society where they can live happily without fear. I have created that society for the people today. That change can only be felt by intellect. We know that some act as if they don't feel it, even if they do. I used Triforces to complete this project to reduce cost. There's no corruption or fraud, and the quality is high. I could have given these to private companies and obtained commissions, but I didn't. I can go before the people and say that I had no part in corruption as the president or a minister of this country.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe intends to transform the district of Galle into a sporting hub in Asia. Addressing an event held in Galle yesterday, the Premier said that plans are in the pipeline to establish 3 professional golf courses and another international cricket stadium in the district.
Sri Lanka-based company Asia Leisure, in partnership with Japan's Belluna Company Limited, unveiled its 6th luxury hotel, Le Grand, in the area of Kaluella in Galle yesterday, under the patronage of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Japanese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Kenichi Sugunuma, also attended the unveiling as the chief guest.
We are very glad to see that investment from Japan is coming. Sri Lanka and Japan has always had a very good relations, but with the coalition government, we are working very hard to try to promote both private investment and also official development assistance program. We are also progressing in the Kelani River Bridge project, the LRT in Colombo, the water supply in Anuradhapura, Kaluganga, and the irrigation and sewage in the north and the east, and many other projects are coming.
We aren't focusing on the coastline of Galle. We are planning to make this a good sports hub in Asia. We have also planned to construct 3 golf courses in the district because only Kandy has one. And we further plan to establish 2 international cricket stadiums here, including the one we already have. We are expecting to build the already established cricket stadium as per the recommendations of UNESCO, but it is rather small with a capacity of 5,000. The other one proposed in Koggala will have 25,000 to 40,000 capacity. That's why I don't understand why private electronic media organizations won't support us when we're doing all of this. The previous government never went on with these proposals, so when we try to do something, there are mass protests. Anyway, it is our duty to develop the sports sector and the economy of the area. That's why we are planning on developing the tourist sector in Galle through the Enterprise Sri Lanka program.
Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, Patricia Scotland, who is in Sri Lanka on a 4-day official visit, met Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe at Temple Trees this morning and held cordial discussions. Meanwhile, Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, who is also in the island on an official visit, met the Premier at Temple Trees. The PM's office said that the ways and means to improve the economic and cultural ties between the two countries were discussed at the meeting. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe has also been invited for a visit in Iran during this discussion. Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Seranayake today responded to the recent remarks made by parliamentarian Rohitha Abegunawardena when the parliamentarian alleged that the army is prohibited from entering the Jaffna fort. Engaging in an observational tour in the Jaffna Peninsula today, the army commander also visited the Jaffna fort, which was at the heart of the MP's commands.
A proposal has been brought at District Development Coordination Committee to ban the army from the Jaffna fort. We call on the army commander to reveal whether the army can enter the Jaffna fort or not. In the meantime, Army Commander Lieutenant General Mahesh Seranayake today arrived in Jaffna for an observational tour. He also visited the Jaffna fort and took the opportunity to respond to the remarks made by MP Abegunawardena.
This morning I arrived in Jaffna. That is in order to meet my troops and discuss what are the army endeavours in time to come. In the course of the day, I managed to meet the Chief Minister, who was also flying with me from Katunayaka to Jaffna in the same flight. During the waiting for the flight and even after arrival, I had a discussion with him of what the army should be providing to the betterment of the people here. One point of discussion was security. Other one was releasing more lands and how fast we could be doing it. And before the monsoon starts, what assistance that the army could provide to the civilians over here. And those are the major events that we discussed. Now, since I am already at the Jaffna fort here, I would like to remind everybody that the army had been here for many generations now. This is not the first time the Sri Lanka army is staying inside the Jaffna fort. When you say it is a fortress, it is very simply means that the fortress belongs to the military. It's nobody else. So army had been there for many years and we have been continuing to stay here. When there is a battalion change or any change take place, you will feel that there is something new. It is not new. There is no reason for us to go out, and even any civilian or the government agencies comes into the fort, we all welcome.
Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Faisal Mustafa calls on all political parties to make an unbiased decision regarding amendments to the Provincial Council Elections Act and the newly introduced mixed electoral system. Minister Mustafa expressed these views during a meeting held with members of Civil Society Committee at the Ministry of Provincial Councils and Local Government yesterday.
The report proposing amendments to the Provincial Councils Election Act ahead of the Provincial Council elections was handed over to Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Faisal Mustafa yesterday. The report was drafted by the Civil Society Committee, which consists of members of People's Action for Free and Fair Elections and Centre for Monitoring Election Violence. Head of the committee and Executive Director of PAFREL made a special request to the subject minister during the meeting. I would like to ask you to do all that you can as the Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government to hold the Provincial Council election as soon as possible. I state with responsibility that each day the Provincial Council election is postponed, it's a day that affects democracy in the country. That's why I am taking the responsibility here. But I would like to remind that this is a responsibility that lies with all 225 parliamentarians. It's not just merely mine or the government's responsibility. Let's make some changes, but we all know that there are forceful influences in each party because of money. The recent local authorities election was the most peaceful election in the country's history. If we continued with the preferential voting system, we wouldn't have been able to elect a number of female politicians like we did. That's why I ask all political parties to think before rejecting this new electoral system. Time has come for you to think about your country instead of any political party. I'm also very proud that all election monitoring bodies and other civil society organizations continue to raise their voices against the preferential voting system.
chairman of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna, Professor G.L. Peiris, rejects the statement made by President Maithripala Sirisena, where the head of state said the previous government failed to provide any support to the Murugahakantha project. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo today, Professor Peiris had this to say on the president's remarks.
His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena declared last week at the commissioning of the Murugahakantha Kaluganga project that during President Rajapaksa's period, nothing whatever had been done in respect of this project. This is entirely inaccurate. I have addressed a letter to the Director General of External Resources in the Ministry of Finance in terms of the Right to Information Act, asking him to provide me with accurate information relating to this project. Actually, the project, the work started in 2007. At that time, I was a member of the Cabinet of Ministers. In 2010, I was appointed Foreign Minister. And I personally negotiated with several countries, with their ambassadors here, and in some cases with the foreign ministers of those countries, with China, with Japan, with Saudi Arabia, and with Iran. And we secured substantial funding for the Murugahakantha project. Furthermore, the Honorable Nimal Siripala de Silva, who was at that time Minister of Irrigation, regularly updated his cabinet colleagues. And on the floor of Parliament also, he reported progress with regard to the Murugahakantha project. All of this is happening because statements are made at the highest levels of government, willy-nilly, without adequate forethought or reflection. This is happening right through the spectrum of government, and that is seriously eroding the credibility of decision-making processes within the government.
Registrar of the Askiri chapter, Venerable Dr. Madhugama Dhammananda Thera, says that the Sangha Council will take a definitive decision on the proposed Theravadi Bhikkhu Dialogue Registration Bill in a special meeting this week. Thera made the remark when Venerable Professor Madhugama Dhammananda Thera visited the Askiri temple today.
Venerable Professor Madhugama Dhammananda Thera visited the Askiri temple in Kandy today to discuss the proposed Theravadi Bhikkhu Dialogue Registration Bill with the chief prelates. Although it comes under the name Theravadi Bhikkhu Dialogue Registration Bill, it mentions separate dialogue for each Buddhist sect. All of us come under Buddhism. So how is it possible for us to have a separate dialogue? All we are asking for is a common dialogue relevant to all Buddhist sects in the country. The government didn't come into power thinking they should rule the Buddhist clergy through this dialogue. It was the chief prelates and Anunagatheras who claimed that there is no legal basis to punishments given by Sangha Sabhas. They held discussions and requested the Ministry of Buddha Sasana and All Island Buddha Sasana Protection Board for a dialogue. And it was then that the officials said that until all Buddhist sects come up with a special dialogue, this particular dialogue act will be implemented. What Dhammadasi Thera mentions was never even discussed in Sangha Sabha, so I completely reject that statement. The Thera doesn't even know the beginnings of this issue. The legal system is strong enough to punish all those crimes against the clergy. For example, if there is an instruction by the Askiri chapter to remove one from monkhood, the Commissioner of Buddhist Affairs must sign off on it. But what if that monk practices the discipline as how he should and society accepts him?
දුන්නොත් එහෙම අවුරුදු 2000 ගණක් තිස්සේ තියාගත්තේ මේ සම්ප්‍රදාය සහ ගරුත්වයක් තියෙන අපි ඇයි මේක පාවා දෙන්නේ මේ කතිකාවතකට?
There's a request from the government to the Sangha Sabha to discuss this dialogue and then let them know of the decision. So we plan to discuss the matter this week and let's give an answer after that. The Buddhist clergy also visited the Malwatha temple in Kandy to bring the chief prelate up to speed on the matter.
The police special task force arrested a suspect yesterday in possession of heroin and another narcotic known as ice from the area of Devalapula in Minuwangoda. Meanwhile, parliamentarian Vimal Weerawansa said today the suspect's affiliations to Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca was raised in Parliament recently, which the minister brushed aside.
The police special task force arrested Anurakant Attanayaka on a tip-off while in possession of illegal narcotics, heroin and ice last evening. Police say they found around 2 grams and 850 milligrams of heroin and 2 grams and 250 milligrams of ice in the suspect's possession. Meanwhile, today, UPFA parliamentarian Vimal Weerawansa, addressing a function in Kaduwala, said that Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca is closely affiliated with the arrested suspect. We revealed in Parliament that Minister Fonseca has connections with drug dealers. We revealed of this suspect. He has served in the police and the STF arrested him yesterday with illegal drugs. The minister told us in Parliament that the suspect is in fact innocent.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Business news now. State Minister of National Policies and Economic Affairs Dr. Harsha De Silva brushes off allegations that the Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement is detrimental to the Sri Lankan economy as politically motivated statements. Addressing a media briefing today, the State Minister went on to explain why such allegations pertaining to the FTA are baseless.
Singapore-Sri Lanka Free Trade Agreement. Some are suggesting that Sri Lanka's economy will tumble. One is it possible for professionals from Singapore to come to Sri Lanka and start practicing their profession? The fearmongers are suggesting that it is possible. But I am saying that is absolutely not true, because in service trade there are 4 modes. Mode 1 is what is called cross-border trade, which means that the person providing the service stays in one country, the person receiving the service stays in another country. Second is you go and consume the service in another country. Mode 3 is when you make investments in another country. For instance, when a hospital made an investment here in Sri Lanka, they brought some doctors along to Sri Lanka. Mode 4 is the more important one, is whether it is possible for individuals to travel across countries and provide their services. Mode 4 is also broken into 4 sub-modes. Mode 1 is business visitors, meaning to negotiate a contract that has always been open. All what we are doing is putting some structures around it. The second thing is intercorporate transfers, meaning a Singaporean company can have an investment in Sri Lanka, vice versa Sri Lanka company can have an investment in Singapore, and for that purpose there can be intercorporate transferees. There are certain numbers who can go from one office to the other office. The third thing is if you are an independent supplier of services, for instance a contractor. So is it possible without having an investment in Sri Lanka for a consultant in Singapore to come and provide services to businesses in Sri Lanka? It is not possible. That is sub-mode 3 of mode 4. Sub-mode 4 of mode 4 is the more controversial one. That is the movement of natural persons. And that is where a lot of fear is being bandied around, that professionals can come and provide their services in Sri Lanka unhindered. That is absolutely not true. And there is another fear that through this we can bring in people from third countries, from India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh. That is absolute bunkum. You have to be a citizen or a permanent resident of Singapore to become eligible for the intercorporate transfers that I spoke about earlier. So these are floated for political reasons. We must integrate, and if we don't integrate, we will be the only country left behind from the regional comprehensive economic partnership, or RCEP. 16 countries are going to sign in November, which includes all the ASEAN plus countries.
China today vowed to retaliate if US President Donald Trump slaps a 25% tariff on the $200 billion of Chinese imports, citing that blackmail wouldn't work. The Trump administration's proposal would increase the potential tariff rate from 10% for the IT it has initially put forward on July 10th. The US expected to pressure Beijing into making trade concessions, a source familiar with the plan told reporters. While the duties would not be imposed until after a period of public comments, raising the proposed level to 25% would escalate the already bitter trade dispute between the two world's biggest economies. All shares ended weaker today, hovering at their lowest close in 3 weeks as foreign investors offloaded blue-chip stocks such as John Keel's Holdings, while lackluster corporate results dented sentiment further. The all-share price index ended 0.29% weaker at 6,129.32. The Bourse had dropped 3.8% so far this year. For analysis of today's trading session, we have Nisansala Kurupamudali from First Capital Holdings.
Market ended in red, reverting back to the negative sentiment, pulled down by big cap, JKH and distilleries. Both turnover and volume had dipped compared to the previous day. A net foreign outflow was witnessed with high foreign participation. On the crossings board, 15,000 shares of Nestle traded at Rs 1,800 a share.
International news now. Foreign media claims that Zimbabwe's ruling party ZANU-PF has won the most seats in parliament in Monday's election. Quoting incomplete official results, reports say President Emmerson Mnangagwa is poised to win with a substantial majority. However, the opposition MDC alliance accuses that the vote is rigged and says that its candidate Nelson Chamisa is in fact the winner. Meanwhile, the polls drew mixed reviews from the European Union's observer mission.
Zimbabwe's Electoral Commission yesterday insisted that there was no rigging or cheating in the first national election since the end of former President Robert Mugabe's nearly 4-decade rule. The chair of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission said that vote counting was complete in most provinces. Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa and his main opponent Nelson Chamisa both said in Twitter posts yesterday that they were confident of victory and are waiting for official election results. As well as electing a president, Zimbabweans were voting for 210 members of parliament and more than 9,000 councillors. Final results of the election are due by the 4th of August. In the meantime, the European Union Observer Mission issued their report on Zimbabwe's landmark elections, with the verdict being improved political climate but unlevel playing field and lack of trust. This is the first time in 16 years that the government has allowed the EU to monitor elections in Zimbabwe. Ex-President Mugabe had a bad relationship with the EU and banned them from monitoring elections.
A passenger plane crashed in the capital of Mexico's Durango state just moments after takeoff, but all passengers and crew were able to escape the accident. However, 97 out of the 103 passengers and crew on board the Aeromexico flight were left injured. Officials said they were taken to hospital, but most had only very light injuries. Aeromexico flight AM2431 was flying from Guadalupe Victoria International Airport in Durango to Mexico City, when it crashed at around 1600 local time. State Governor Jose Rosas Aspiro said the plane was hit by a gust of winds which caused a sudden descent, and its left wing had touched the ground and 2 engines came off. Most of the passengers were able to walk away before it caught fire. The U.S. State Department says that while it previously got involved in the discussions on 3D printed guns to prevent the wrong people from acquiring weapons overseas, the matter was ultimately settled as a domestic issue. President Donald Trump yesterday raised concerns about the sale of plastic guns made with 3D printers, a day after several U.S. states sued his administration to block online publication of designs to make weapons that security screening may not detect. 8 states and the District of Columbia on Monday filed a lawsuit to fight a June settlement between the federal government and defense distributors, allowing the Texas-based company to legally publish its designs. Court filings showed that its downloadable plans were initially set to go online today, but the files were already uploaded on Friday. Gun rights groups have been largely dismissive of concerns about 3D printable guns, saying the technology is expensive and the guns are unreliable.
Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
A very good evening everyone and welcome to Forecast First. Northern, eastern and northwestern parts of the country are set for some scorching temperatures tomorrow, with Batiklo set to bear the brunt of it with 35 degrees Celsius. As usual, people in the central province will not have to worry about getting sunburnt, as much cooler temperatures in the region of 20 degrees Celsius will prevail in the hills. Despite the scorching heat, Batiklo is in for some showers and thunder showers, with typically the southern half of the island experiencing cloudy weather. Other than that, the rest of the country will see much of the sun. That's it from your weather center tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Other Derana 24/7. I'm Mahesh Johnny. First at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time. Be sure to join us then. Before we wrap things up for tonight, we want to take you to Athugala Temple in Kurunegala, placed on a rock resembling the shape of an elephant, which is 325 meters of height, is an 88 feet tall Buddha statue visited by a number of local and international tourists. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.